And welcome, everybody. It's time for your Nooner with me, Dave LaMont, only on Mondays in this month, and there's a really good reason for that, and that's actually going to be the big topic of the day for me, and that's talking about what's happening in the state legislature right now regarding a bill that will permit an expansion of gambling in Florida. So we've got that to talk about, and it's just a me show today, so that's great, right? But a couple things. First off, before I get into the what's going on in Tallahassee, the Florida Panthers did something a little bit unusual last night. Number one, I guess, would be playing a playoff game. But number two was just the way they lost last night to the Lightning, blowing a lead. Normally, this Panthers team is a comeback team in the third period, and normally they're also very steady at holding leads or breaking up a tie game in the third period. So, listen, the Lightning aren't slobs by any means, but I thought that was a very interesting and disappointing for the Panthers result last night. Certainly one of the great overreactions in sports besides opening day in baseball or football or even basketball is the overreaction to when a team loses a first playoff game. All of a sudden they're down 0-1 in the series and everybody's writing them off. Now, you should know better by now, and I don't see why the Panthers can't win their series, and I bet you neither do the Panthers, but it's just odd behavior for a team that, to me anyway, was just nails in the third period. So it's a trend. It's not even a trend. It's just something to keep an eye on, okay? Kind of like that mole you have that really isn't that bad yet, but you want to keep an eye on it. So I just try to keep an eye on it like that. And I think I am the first pseudo broadcaster to have ever equated a mole and the Stanley Cup playoffs in the same sentence. So I thank you for that. The NBA playoffs begin with that play-in deal, 7 through 10. I see both sides of this, as I'm trained to do. I love it if I'm 9 and 10, Charlotte and Washington. I hate it if I'm 7 and 8. It's extra mileage on your legs. It's extra travel because we're bubble-free now for the NBA season. We did have a shortened season, 72 games, so hopefully some legs are left for these teams to be able to compete competently after they play their way into the playoffs. I personally am a little tired of seeing expansions of playoffs, even in the college game, which seems inevitable to happen in Division I. I'm not crazy about it. I don't like the fact that the March Madness added 2 more teams to 64 instead of 62 because you end up screwing over the HBCU champions and forcing them to play in the tournament they already belong in. Don't care for it at all. But guess what? UCLA made their run out of that bracket. They went from a play-in game to the Final Four. So there's the argument against that. So I'm not necessarily a huge fan of expanding playoffs, but this is kind of interesting. I give the NBA credit for an experiment, which is probably going to be permanent. And the Miami Heat finishing 6th, they get time off. That's right. You're going to get a week without seeing the Heat play. And you know who's happy about that? The Heat. Every NBA team that's earned their week off is, I assume, at least taking 2 or 3 days to do nothing but lay in bed. Or lie in bed, for that matter. 72-game season, fast-paced. They were back to traveling. It was an exhausting season for them. And I don't know what to tell you about the series against Milwaukee. Last year, having seen them play Milwaukee a few times and throw Milwaukee around the ring, I kind of thought the Heat could pull it off last year, and they did. And then, the rest. I do not expect the Heat to be in the NBA Finals this year. They had just been too wacky. You just don't know. Now, part of the problem, and the biggest problem, last year I thought it was Goran's team. I thought the real secret key to the Heat's run last year was Goran. I really do. Dragic. Now it's not even a secret. It's Jimmy Butler. Stat of the daytime, you ask. I got it. Stat of the day. The Miami Heat do not win if Jimmy Butler does not play. Jimmy Butler played 52 games this year. He missed 10 with COVID and 10 others. The Heat won 33 and lost 19 with Jimmy Butler. And held opponents to the second lowest total in what is a very high-scoring NBA now. The second lowest total in the NBA this year in points is 106.1. which would have ranked second in the league. This is from ESPN.com, by the way, these stats. You take Jimmy Butler out of the lineup, 20 games, the Heat only won 7 of those 20 and gave up 7 more points per game, or 6.9 if you want to get exact on that. So the beautiful thing about it is no deep analysis is required. If he plays at the level he played at last year, this team has a chance to beat Milwaukee. If he does not, then you could be finished early. You need Tyler Hero to go back to Tyler Hero from a year ago when he surprised everybody in the league with some of the big games he had. You need Dragic still to be competent and healthy. You need Bam Adebayo to be a bigger star than he is now if this team is going to get out of this round and have anything to say about beating, say, Brooklyn or Philly, who are the 2 big favorites in the East. Then you know what's cool about the play-in tonight? You know who's playing in? The Lakers and Golden State. Now, Golden State's, they've been weird with their season, but the Lakers missed LeBron for a long time. He's back, but now they're going to have to work their way in. And I don't know, any extra mileage on that team, to me, weakens them. Even as much of a physical marvel as LeBron James is, it's extra work, man. It's extra work at a high intensity. Everything about the NBA playoffs is ratcheted up 1,000 points, man. It just gets deadly serious. And deadly, it's faster, it's harder, it's more physical, it's meaner, it's all of these things, which makes it great, right? So I have no predictions. I'll say this. I would be beyond shocked if the Heat made even the Eastern Finals. And if they made the NBA Finals, then that's it. At halftime of the first game, they'll induct Eric Spoelstra into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and that would be the end of it. Because if he and his team can pull all of that off, it would be a remarkable, remarkable feat. It's just an opinion. Naturally, I hope I'm wrong. But it's going to be harder, I think, to beat Milwaukee. And if you're Milwaukee, look, I know some of you Heat fans are dissatisfied with this season. How dissatisfied do you think the Bucks fans are going to be if this team, with all their talent, with one of the best players on the planet, who did not play well against Miami, the Heat took him completely out of that series by making him a jump shooter? If you guys can't win now, meaning Milwaukee, and they've added a key player in Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday is a very good player, and he's going to be a problem. Then I don't know what the Bucks do. What do? You've had, an MVP guy, a dominant player, and you guys can't beat the Heat 2 years in a row in the first round? Oh, boy. You can fire all the coaches you want, but it might be on the players, don't you think? Just might be. So I would think that if you're the Bucks, and you don't really want to see the Heat because the Heat are a pain in the butt to play. And especially if Jimmy Butler's around. I mean, Adebayo is a better player. Jimmy Butler is still a stud. It's been Hero and Robinson and some of these other guys that have kind of taken a half a step back. And they have to take that half a step and actually make it a full step to be ahead of where they were last year. It's really curious to see if they can pull it off, and we'll get a chance to watch. So the thing I want to talk about today, and it's a little bit personal for me, as you know, or maybe you don't know, and you've got 2 weeks yet to see or hear me announce at Dania Highlight, where I announced for 7 years in the 80s. It essentially kept my broadcasting career going, even though I wasn't technically broadcasting. I was the PA guy. But it kept me announcing. It kept my chops going. It kept, paid my bills because I had just moved out, living with mom and dad. And since then, the sport of highlight has taken a terrible, terrible tumble to where there's really only, and I know this is going to sound like a commercial, but it's true. There's only one true highlight fronton in the country, and that is at the casino at Dania Beach. Some of the rest of them are, they're so linked to the casino that the players aren't that good. The games, the courts aren't right. I mean, it's just the equipment is not the same. It's just not the sport as I knew it and basically grew up on for 8 years almost in the 1980s. So what's going on in Tallahassee right now, however, isn't a bad thing with some exceptions. To try to just get it to the nut, what they're talking about doing, and it's almost certainly going to get through, in fact, it will get through, is expanding casino gambling to allow sports betting that would be on Seminole tribe land in Hollywood. So if you don't know, for those of you out of state or out of the area, the Hard Rock Hollywood started out with the worst slot machines ever that were inexorably tied to bingo games, and they blew through that, and they allowed card games. So you had your war, your blackjack, your got a 3-card poker, things like that, and a poker room. They still don't have craps, all right, except for the goofy stuff, which isn't the same thing. And roulette. Well, that would change. And sports betting would be brought in, but only on Seminole land. There was talk of casinos going to the Fontainebleau. That's dead in the water, at least for a year. And the other aspect of this bill, in other words, nobody else could get the sports betting, by the way. It wouldn't be all of a sudden that, let's say the casino at Dania Beach could kick down a wall and open up a sports book. Not happening. All right? It's only for the Seminole land. The other side dispute that's come out of that is what's going to happen to a couple of cities that surround the area, Davie and Hollywood. Well, reading the Sun-Sentinel, City of Hollywood is going to lose 20% of what they've been getting from the Seminole tribe. And Davie is going to get that 20% boost. Hollywood's yelling, hey, I realize you are on a reservation, but you use our first responders and our police quite a bit. By the way, the Seminole tribe has their own security force, but it is obviously not the size of a City of Hollywood police department and EMS and all that. Davie says, hey, you pass through Davie to go to the Hard Rock if you're coming from the north or the east or the west, not the south. And where's our piece of it? Well, you're about to get a big piece. It's an interesting argument because if Hollywood loses all that money, where do they find it? Ain't nobody have a couch with that many coins in it. It's a real painful loss for the city of Hollywood. For the state of Florida, woo, as Ric Flair would say, or more like, woo, because I can't count that high as to how much money bringing sports gambling into the state would do. I can't. This could be another March Madness destination, as Las Vegas is. We have over 20 states in this country now that allow sports betting. Jersey is killing it, okay? Colorado is doing well. There's a ton of places. I don't mind it. You know me now. You know I like to gamble. Not heavily, not out of control. I still have my home, my car. I'm not going to get my legs broken. So I'm into this. I think it's wonderful. Now, you may not be able to use an app where some places allow that. That hasn't happened yet. Probably not going to in this bill. But what it will allow the Seminole tribe to do is build another couple of casinos. Have you been to the Hard Rock at all? Have you ever noticed what in the hell are they going to do with all that empty land across the street from the main entrance? I think I have an answer for that now. Right? Seems that way. For a while, it was employee parking. And then now it's just brush. It's just a fenced off. Why not? They could expand to the south and take over that traditional casino, whatever that building is over there. They got room. And the Seminole and the Hard Rock people have obviously shown they know what they're doing. All right. They built that Guitar Hotel, which is a real landmark in town. They changed the casino. They made it look much more Vegas-y, which is a compliment in my book. They have really dressed the place up. So sports gambling and that revenue is only going to help the state. Look, it's always about money. So don't give me everything else. Understand it's always going to be about money. Now, here's the part that makes me laugh before I get to the part that makes me cry. There's a group in the state, and I've got the copy of the Sunday Sun-Sentinel called No Casinos. No Casinos for Florida. Okay. This isn't a personal attack because I don't know anybody who's at the No Casinos for Florida organization. How do you think you guys are doing lately? how's the scorecard? Because there's a big casino in Hollywood about to get bigger. There's a big one in Coconut Creek. There's Dania Beach. There's the Isle. There's Magic City. There was Miccosukee, which is closed for the moment and may remain closed. Tampa has a Hard Rock. Do you get my drift? I don't think your batting average is very good. Like if you run no casinos, do you wake up in the morning and go, yeah, another day, kicking ass? I don't think you do. And by the way, if you think this is just some little grassroots group, the Brayman family has some dollars in there. That is a prominent South Florida family in auto dealerships. I don't know if the Disney company is invested in this group, but Disney is not real keen about casinos because they're concerned about their stake in the Orlando area, understandably. What did I say? It's all about money. And I can't ever see Disney getting into gambling because that's going to go against their image. Disney sells family. Disney sells children. Yes, Disney sells adult experiences as well, but it is still a family and child-oriented entertainment company. So I just don't see casinos with Mickey Mouse chips. Don't see it. So no casinos, I don't know, man. I just don't know if you've done your job. And by the way, this casino gambling debate dates back to when I broke into talk radio in 1980 and even before. In the old days of talk radio in the 70s and 80s in South Florida, it was always casino gambling was a topic, English only. That didn't work out. Now did it? Because of our diverse culture, people were getting upset that they were hearing Spanish being spoken. Well, you can hear a lot more than that being spoken around here now, and it's working out okay. Anita Bryant made some homophobic comments some time ago. She was a famous entertainer. That whole ship has not just sailed, it's sunk. That was South Florida talk radio in those days. And here we are still barking about casino gambling all these years later. Only the casinos have arrived. They want to get bigger and better. And sports betting would do it. Now, the no casinos people have another problem with casinos, and this is legitimate. It's they are concerned about the addiction aspect of gambling. And yes, gambling can be an addiction. There isn't any question about that. It can be an addiction like food. It can be an addiction like alcohol. It can be an addiction like prescription drugs or narcotics, illegal narcotics. Completely understand. Some people can't handle gambling. I have never heard of this before, but when I joined the Dania Fronton, they put up pictures of people who have self-excluded themselves from the casino part. They banished themselves for a 1, 2, or 3 year period. And there's a picture. So if for some reason they have a weak moment and they show up, they can't get in. And they chose to do that in a way to beat their addiction. So yes, I understand that addictions are crippling, but it's the minority of people. So you say to yourself, okay, so what do you do here for the good of the public? Do you allow the public to be entertained in a manner that would entertain them and make a boatload of money for the state or the surrounding cities and for the people who own the casino, in this case, the Seminole tribe? Or do you go, well, the needs of the majority are dictated by the minority here, and because we're concerned that some people will develop a crippling gambling addiction and not be able to pay their bills or possibly become homeless or possibly wreck a family, we're just going to block it all. And if that's the case, then you better shut every bar and every restaurant. And yes, I believe that argument. Because if we're agreeing that alcohol is an addiction, do we not allow bartenders to serve alcoholics? First off, how do you know who's an alcoholic? It's not like you walk around with a card that says it. Well, actually, if you have a chip, I guess you do. But then again, you're not going to be drinking at the bar, right? So the addiction argument is a good one, but is an addiction just an addiction? Maybe a psychologist can explain that better than I can. But to me, maybe it's easier for me to say that because I can gamble and I'm not worried about that I'm going to go crazy. I don't have any gambling stories of being up 1,000 and down 3,000 and I got back to even by the end of the night. I don't have any stories like that. I make my little bets and I go away. Hopefully I win. And if I don't, I'm not broke. I do have problems with food. Does that mean I can't go to a restaurant anymore because I have an addiction to sweets? Not an addiction that I eat every day, but, get me going and I can do some damage. A quart of ice cream? Please. Amateur hour at the Apollo. I got that. So the addiction argument is a thoughtful one, but I don't think it's enough. And again, 5 or 6 minutes ago, I said it's all about the money, and it is. So now here's the part that is going to bother me if it happens. There's a part of this, and it's called decoupling. So right now in this area, you have highlight being played at Calder Racecourse, which is a horse track and a casino, if you don't know. What used to be called Dania Highlight, where I worked, is now called the Casino at Dania Beach, which is 90% casino and 10% highlight, but good highlight. It really is. There are places that have what I call pop-ups. Like you have a pop-up store for a month or so that sells perfume or clothes or makeup or whatever, and then they go away. Well, dog racing, there's a harness track at Pompano Park that used to be one of the premier harness tracks in the country that still has a short season. It is attached to a casino that's owned by Caesars. Decoupling would allow these companies that own these casinos and these venues, these like tracks, to get rid of the track. In other words, you had to have that track to have the casino license. You have to have Highlight Dania to have the casino license. You have to do a certain number of dates at Calder to have a casino license. Well, if you take that away, what do you think is going to happen to those pop-up casinos? Probably gone. And the one that scares me is Dania, because I don't know what they're going to do. And I don't want to be critical here because it's a business decision. But the focus is on the casino. I think that's a fact. So do you flush that away and all that tradition, or because you have a collective bargaining agreement with your players for, I believe, at least 2 more years, do you honor that? And then when you get 2 years into this, do you go, okay, we've fulfilled your contract, we're closing Highlight because we don't have to have it anymore. It's a very difficult scenario. It's a very difficult decision. Dania Highlight is scheduled to resume in September. Now, something else this article points out, and I'll just read directly from it. If the legislature approves the gambling deal, it will have additional regulatory and legal hurdles to overcome. The deal has to have federal approval, and it could face legal challenges. And I mentioned no casinos, and I kind of mocked them a little bit, but I'm sure they're going to challenge this. There's some stuff about an Amendment 3, which we voted on in 2018. I know I voted for it in 2018, which said citizens' initiative requiring at least 60% support from voters is the exclusive method of authorized casino gambling in Florida. But Amendment 3 also includes a passage that should not be construed, excuse me, I don't have my reading glasses on, construed to limit the ability of the state or Native American tribes to negotiate gaming compacts pursuant to the Federal Indian Gaming Regulatory Act for the conduct of casino gambling on tribal lands. The Seminoles say, that's us, baby. Count us. We're good. The no casinos people are not so fast, my friend. So there you have it, a fascinating tug of war that's going to happen once this gets approved. The governor signs it, and all of a sudden, here comes construction at the Hard Rock and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, coming to Florida. I like it. I like it a lot. I just don't want to see Highlight get hurt, and especially Dania Highlight, because I have a history there that's very important in my life. And I sit there wondering, well, in a year from now, if I'm needed again to fill in for a month, am I going to be needed again to fill in for a month? Is there going to be anything to fill in for? My gut, and it is strictly a semi-educated guess, is that Dania will honor the contract. And by the way, I have not spoken to any management people at Dania. I haven't. Hey, when you're an employee, you try to avoid your management, right? This is just shop talk amongst the guys. I don't know if you want to eat those contracts. Hey, maybe it's more profitable for you to eat the contracts rather than operate highlight at what I assume is a loss. Do you flush that tradition down the toilet just for money? Yeah, I don't think we know the answer to that. So it's a fascinating thing to watch. My suggestion, of course, come on out to highlight at Dania while you can. And hopefully come September, when the new season is supposed to start, it starts. But I got to tell you, I'm a little concerned about the long-term future for the sport, without any question. And I never thought it would get like this. But this bill, in a lot of ways, makes sense. I like being treated like a grown-up by my government. I imagine most people do. I understand that you have to tell me what to do sometimes, and you have rules and laws and things that I would be breaking if I crossed these certain lines. But at other times, I like being treated like an adult. And to me, having that choice to gamble or not to gamble is being treated like an adult. Again, I'm able to manage it. But there are others. I'm thinking of someone in particular who I know who's had a hard time with it, who became sort of a semi-professional type gambler. When it ain't working, and you need money. So I get the addiction part. The casinos do their part by at least putting out the information where people can get help. So this is going to be an incredibly interesting next few months in this state to see what happens with the court challenges, to see what happens, how far they can go, and to see if all of a sudden across the street from the Hard Rock Casino, basically that beautiful new hotel, if you start to see construction cranes and workers and building and all of that. Because they're the ones who stand to benefit the most. And the next thing is, do we start seeing people flooding into Florida in March, which they already do anyway, right, for the weather? But now they're going to be spending all their time at the Hard Rock, plunging their brains out on college basketball and everything else. Remains to be seen. And I hate leaving you dangling like that, but that's all I got. That's the show for today. Again, no Fridays while I am working at Highlight. I've got 2 weeks left. I do encourage you to come down. There's no admission charge. The Highlight is top quality, I promise. And it's Wednesday, 1 and 7 p.m., Thursday, 7 p.m., Friday, Saturday, 1 and 7 p.m., and Sunday at 4 p.m. So it's a day off today and a day off tomorrow night. I thank you very much for paying attention to this one. I enjoyed this. It was fun talking to myself. And you know what? There's nobody home here right now. So when I sign off, I'm going to talk to myself anyway. At least you all were listening. So it's appreciated as always. I've got my Twitter account, Dave LaMont1, YouTube, Dave LaMont, Facebook, of course, Dave LaMont. In other words, I don't hide. Maybe I should. But thank you. We'll talk again next Monday.